Hey everybody, so welcome to the Plaid Studio. We are very excited for tonight's Let's Paint Live because we love to celebrate a holiday. And St. Patrick's Day is next on the list, right around the corner. And we are doing this really fun Lucky Clover vase. It's fun for St. Patrick's Day, but you know what? It's just really fun and bright and trendy for home decor or just for a really fun canvas project. So welcome to Let's Paint Live. If you're new to Let's Paint Live, we teach you the first Thursday of every month a painting that takes about an hour. And we've got Dylan in the studio, so we love to hear comments about the paints or comments about if you're new to Let's Paint Live, if you have any questions or what color am I using or slow down or speed up. Put that in the chat and Dylan will get back to you so that you have a super successful class. So we are going to paint this Lucky Clover vase tonight in about an hour, and we're using our Let's Paint Live kit. So the first thing I want to do is show you guys all of the supplies that you are going to need for tonight's class. So first we're using a 9x12 canvas, and whenever I teach a class I always say the size of the canvas it doesn't matter. If you want to do something bigger, smaller, the techniques is what is so important, and you will learn that regardless of what size canvas you pick to paint on. All right, I hope you all have the Let's Paint Live kit because it's fabulous, and every month we use only what is in that kit. But if you don't, I want to show you the specific colors of FolkArt that we're using. We're using only FolkArt matte acrylic, which will complete every technique and detail in our project. So FolkArt matte, Dutch aqua, we've got apple red, and we've got this beautiful bright pink. Got daffodil yellow, always wicker white. We'll use that a bunch tonight. We've got navy blue. And then we've got three greens: thicket, classic, and then lime green. And if you only have one or two and a little bit of white, you can make different shades of green. We just really want to have the variety for when we're shading and highlighting our little 4-leaf clovers. Okay, Let's Paint Live kit has a complete assortment of brushes, but if you don't have it, get it first. But also I want to show you what brushes we're using. You don't have to use the exact brushes that I'm using. I always like to say have a medium flat brush, a smaller flat brush, and a large flat brush, all available in the Let's Paint Live kit. But if yours is an 8 and I'm using a 10, your project is going to be perfect. If yours is a 1 inch but I'm using a 3/4, your project's going to be perfect. And then you're going to want to have a liner brush, and so get a small liner brush just for the final details at the end of our project. So make sure you have a palette, some paper towels, and some water for your brushes. And then tonight, all you're going to need is a pencil, a chalk stick. I have white, but if you've got pink or green, any color works because it's just a way to apply a pattern. And something a little bit different tonight is I want you guys to have a ruler. If you don't have a ruler, really anything with a straight edge, a piece of poster board with a straight edge. You just want to have that straight edge because we're going to do a fun technique to create this checkerboard tabletop that our vase sits on. All right, I think that is all the supplies that you guys are going to need, so we are going to get started. Oh, and a blow dryer. If you don't have one, run and get it because like I said, we try to teach you everything and complete a beautiful painting in an hour, so we will dry some of our layers during tonight's class. All right, so with that, I think we're going to get started. So the first thing we are going to do using our pencil is we're going to apply a pattern, but not specific, not exactly. We're not going to draw our clovers. It's really just placement. So the first thing I want to do is draw the tabletop. And you can see I don't create a straight line. I don't divide the canvas in half. You want it to be really organic. So I'm going to be a little bit lower on this side, and I'm just going to do an angle going up. I do a really light pencil, so I'm going to hold that up so that you guys can see it. But the only thing that matters is that it is not perfectly straight and divide your canvas in half. All right, now we're going to draw our vase, but remember, it's not color book painting. We're not going to color it exactly. It's more of a guide for placement. So I'm going to do a straight line for the top, I'm going to kind of curve down and then do a little bit of a rounded bottom. That is all that we are going to draw for a pattern to get us started. All right, so now we're going to use the daffodil yellow. You can put that on your palette and a little bit of wicker white. Oh, there goes my chalk. A little bit of wicker white. And then I'm going to use my large brush. And no water. I'm going to dip into that yellow, and all I'm going to do, I'm going to go into the wicker white every now and then just to lighten that yellow, but not to mix a new color. I've got the daffodil straight out of the bottle, a little bit of white, and I'm just creating a really kind of textured, but not textured, more of a really loose, modern background, just using the yellow and a little bit of wicker white every now and then. And I'm just base coating above the tabletop around the base. Don't worry if you overlap that base, because we're going to go back and paint that. That is just a guide to get us started. So you've got a really beautiful yellow background. You don't want it solid. You want that texture, because tonight's class, all we want to do is really have fun with color. Okay, now for the ruler. I am going to blow dry this just a little bit because I don't want my yellow to bleed into my tabletop. The FolkArt matte acrylic is so fun to work with because you can just keep layering and layering because it dries really quick. Okay, so I am going to get a medium flat brush or a number 12 flat brush. I'm going to get some of that Dutch Aqua onto my palette. And then if you're out of wicker white, add wicker white back onto your palette. And then what we're going to do is we are going to use the ruler to give us kind of straight, because we don't want, I want to show you guys the original, we don't want a perfect checkerboard because we're doing all this blending and shading and just kind of abstract backgrounds and blending of color, but we want it straight enough that it looks like a checkerboard. So that's where I want to use the ruler. I'm not going to measure. All I'm going to do is place that ruler. You can start at the bottom or you can start at your table line. I'm going to start at my table line because I just think it looks more organic. And I'm going to go into the Dutch Aqua. And I am going to use the edge of that ruler. And again, remember, I'm not going to measure every ½ inch. This edge is what's more important. And I am going to use that ruler as a guide to get my checks straight. Same thing as the yellow. If you go over your vase pencil line, don't worry, because we are going to go in and base coat that and add a lot of fun color. I'm going to scoot that ruler down. Remember, I'm just using this straight edge as a guide, but I'm going to alternate. So I'm going to alternate those little blue checks, but the ruler's keeping them straight. I'm going to scoot down again and alternate again. I'm going to put a little one there, even though the vase is going to cover it. Pick up paint as you need it. And you can see the canvas is coming through on some of the strokes. That's kind of a good look. So don't worry about getting a perfect square. Remember, we're doing a really loose, abstract checkerboard tablecloth. And just keep working your way down. And just using that Dutch Aqua. And you're alternating as you go. I'm going to actually overlap the bottom of that vase because we'll go in and base coat that in a minute and make it that beautiful bright pink color. The ruler's allowing our checks to be straight so that each square is not exact is fine. Oh, I'm going to hold that on the corner and alternate one more row. Just kind of let it fall off the edge. You can kind of eyeball. And then this one, just to finish off the corner. And then you can go in, and if some of them are just really light, you can stroke right back over them. I've got a little area where my ruler held on to some of that paint. You can just brush over that and kind of extend each square. But you should have a pretty straight, a really nice checkerboard pattern. All right, I'm going to hit that with the blow dryer again. I think that is totally dry. So using that same number 12 flat brush, I'm cleaning it out in water, but always remove as much water as possible on a paper towel. Okay, and then I'm not going to need the ruler, but I'm going to go in and add white. Even though the canvas is white, my blue checks are a little bit bigger. So I'm just going in with the wicker white and overlapping the white checks to even everything out and make a really fun, loose, modern checkerboard tablecloth. See the difference it makes? I know the canvas is white, but this is just leveling everything out and making it the perfect pattern for our little vase. Overlap where your vase is, because we'll base coat that in a minute. A lot of the things I'm doing tonight, I'm wanting to just experiment with color and show you guys fun ways that are not as traditional, not blending, shading, highlighting, or not base coating and then painting on top. Fun ways to get different colors in your composition with different techniques. So we're going to be doing a lot of that tonight. All right. I think I like the way my checkered tablecloth looks. It's kind of fun and retro. Okay, I'm going to hit that with the blow dryer. Okay, I think that's dry. All right, so now we're going to base coat the elements of our painting. So it looks like our vase is pink, But what we're going to do to get all of that dimension is we are first going to base coat it with red. So what I want you guys to do is, oh, there's the back of my frame, sorry about that, is get a little bit of the apple red on your palette and a little bit of the dark navy. There we go. All right, so I'm going to use that same number 12 brush for my vase. And all we're going to do is base coat the entire vase with this beautiful rich red. So my checks kind of overlapped my vase a little bit. So just widen that out and make the vase going directly over the checks. Make it the original shape that you had. I'm going to make it a little bit rounder. I got to straighten him out a little. But just a nice even base coat. Make sure you don't have any areas where the paint is really thick, because that will just take a minute to dry. Okay, now we're going to get our littlest flat brush. So this is a number 2 flat, and we're not going to have a pattern for our clovers, but using our chalk stick, we're going to get some placement so we just have a place to start. We're not going to draw exactly what we see in the finished painting. So each clover, let me hold this up, I want you guys to see. I'm kind of viewing each leaf as a little heart with kind of a squished end. So view it that way because everyone can draw a heart. That just makes it a little bit easier to apply a pattern. So I know I want to have a big dominant 4-leaf clover. I'm going to put a little dot there. I know a little bit higher up, I want a big dominant 4-leaf clover. So I'm going to put a little dot there. And then so it's organic, I'm going to kind of know it's falling out of the vase and maybe it hits right there. I'm going to put a little dot there. So remember the heart. I'm going to draw a heart. I hope you guys can see that, the white and the yellow. Let me draw extra heavy and hold it up. I'm going to turn the canvas and draw 2, not defined, but really loose hearts around that dot. Let me see if you guys can see that. Ooh, the yellow and the white's tricky. Can you guys see that, Dylan? Probably not.
Yeah, that looks good.
Oh, there you go. Let me show you guys. Oh, maybe. It's hard to tell. Really light, and we're not going to follow it exactly. It's just a guide to give us some confidence when we're painting. There's my other dot. I'm going to do the same thing. Kind of an irregular squishy heart, 4 of them around that dot that we created.
Kirsten, what color did you paint the base coat for the vase?
That is apple red.
Okay.
Okay, so I've got my 2 4-leaf clovers. Over here, not everyone can find 4-leaf clovers. So this one is going to be a little 3-leaf clover. And then I want to fill this space a little bit. So maybe I'm going to put a little dot right there. And I'm going to have a clover that's a little bit smaller, still 3 leaves. And then I still have a little opening right there. Plus my composition is 1, 2, 3, 4. I always think a composition looks better when it's done in odd. So I'm going to add 1 more little clover right here in the middle. Okay, so I've got the placement. Make sure you guys can see that. But the chalk is just a guide. Okay, so now using our number 2 or our smaller flat brush and our navy, we are going to base coat each leaf. And I know drawing a heart was easy and it gave you the confidence to place the shape or the pattern on your canvas, but make sure you don't make it a perfect heart. See how it doesn't really have that dip down center like a traditional heart, but it's very similar to a squished heart. So make a base coat, but flatten out that hard top that a traditional heart would have. See how I just kind of flattened it out and made it an irregular leaf shape. So base coat all of your leaves with this navy blue. Working on a dark background is a fun way to add dimension to the elements in your painting. In the green, when we add the green for our clovers, you'll see how fun it is to work on a dark base coat. Make sure each leaf is a different color, or I'm sorry, not a different color, a different size. So it just looks really natural. Same thing with this one that's much smaller, but he's a 3-leaf clover. See how it looks like a heart, but then just kind of flatten it and make it more of the shape of a leaf. I love the navy on the yellow. Okay, I'm going to go up to this big clover back at the top. Actually, I'll outline them first so you guys can see them. The chalk is hard to see on that yellow. See how they kind of look like hearts? That's a good way. Actually, I'll outline them all for anyone that's having a hard time seeing that chalk pattern. That's an easier way for you guys to see it. And then when you fill it in, you can make them look a little less like a heart. Don't connect them in the center because that's where we're going to add some detail at the very end. I'm going to make him a little bigger. That's a little tiny one. If you've got any areas where you've got a lot of navy, just brush over that and flatten that out so it'll be quicker to dry. Okay, so you should have navy blue clovers. But remember, this is just our base coat, and this is going to allow us to have a lot of fun with color. Okay. Any questions? I'm going to dry these 2 colors.
You're good.
All right. All right. It's kind of a cute composition. I love the blue, red, and yellow. Okay, so now we've got the details of the clover. So I'm going to put all 3 of the greens, the lime green, the classic green, and then the dark green, which is thicket, onto your palette. You don't need too much, and more wicker white. Okay, so I'm going to go back to that small flat brush, clean it in the water, but then make sure you remove all of the water on a paper towel. FolkArt works wonderful with water, doing watercolor techniques, or a really soft wash, or blending and shading. It works beautifully for all of those techniques. But for tonight's technique, we want the bold, intense pigments in all the colors that we're using. So we just want to have a dry brush for all of the different techniques. Okay, so there's no right or wrong. I'm going to go into the medium green, but if you want your clovers to be a little bit darker, you can start with the dark, or if you want them to be a little bit brighter and just a bright clover, go into the light green. I am going to start in the middle with classic green, and I'm going to base coat. But what I want you guys to do is not base coat completely covering up the navy. You want maybe the edges, or maybe you lose some of the paint on your brush after a few strokes and that navy comes through. You want all of that, because that is just going to add dimension to your painting. And what I'm also not going to do is I'm not going to completely base coat each one with this green. I'm going to base coat maybe the left side of this leaf, jump over and clean my brush off with that one. I'm going to do maybe the top section of this one and kind of a irregular line in the center. So I've got that navy on the outside. You're just starting to apply greens to the navy base coats. I'll do the top and then kind of dry brush so a lot of that navy shows. Can you guys see that? I'm going to hold that up. See how we're just starting to build color, but we're not covering up that navy completely. The key is to never completely cover up your base coat, because then you'll lose all of that dimension. I'm going to do the top of that leaf, but then dry brush. As my brush runs out of paint, I'm just going to add just a little bit to each leaf. But they can all be different. Nothing has to be exactly the same on any two leaves. You're just starting to apply that green. All right, then I'm going to clean that, not in water, but just on a paper towel. And I'm going to go into that lime green. Not too much paint. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to maybe get this edge of the leaf, and then as my brush runs out of paint towards the center, it creates that dry brush technique. This one, I'm going to do the lime on the bottom edge and then let it dry brush where it meets that dark green. Same with this one, but still keeping, this is a great way to show, still keeping a lot of navy, because that's what gives you all that great dimension. If you want to draw a line down the center of one of them and make one side light green and one side dark, that's a really pretty look, because that's kind of how the clover leaf grows naturally. So I'm just dividing it in half and then using what paint is on my brush to dry brush. Not going to do it on everyone though, because you want each clover leaf to look a little bit different. So you can divide some, but then you can just accent with the lime green on others. So I'll divide that one, and then I'll just dry brush that one side, but then soften that line a little bit by dry brushing over it. Because everything is so loose, we don't want any hard lines. I hope you guys are getting really a lot of depth, I guess is a good way to say it, because of the dark base coat. A lot of times working on a light color, we would have to base coat solid green, and then we would just have to continue to build all of that dimension. But the dark base coat allows that just to happen so much easier and just be a really loose, fun technique. Okay, I'm going to dry or clean off that brush on the paper towel, not in water. And I'm going to go a little bit into that thicket. Now the thicket is the darkest one, obviously, and the navy is really dark, so you might not need a lot of that. But I'm softening the lime green a little. I'm adding to any large areas of navy. I'm softening that line in the center. There's really no way that you can mess up using these 3 different greens over the navy blue background. This one's got a little too much navy, so I'm dry brushing some more of that lime green onto this one. Any area where you think you maybe have too much navy, just go in there with either the classic green or the lime green and just brush over it just a little, but don't cover it up completely. This one's got a little bit of navy. I want to lighten up. That might be right. Okay, so I'm going to clean that brush, not in water, but just on a paper towel. And now I'm going to go into the wicker white. Not too much paint. I'm going to go into the wicker white, but then kind of brush it outside on a clean palette outside of the paint, just to get a little bit of paint on there. And I'm going to do the exact same thing, dry brushing just in sections. And that wicker white will just give you a little bit more dimension. But you don't want too much because you don't want to take away from all those beautiful greens. It just kind of gives you, here's a perfect example. See how with the little bit of paint on your brush, you get that, that textured canvas pattern? That's a great way to add details to your painting. So just a little bit of white. Okay, same little flat brush, go into your dark thicket. And a chisel edge is the very end of your bristles. So I'm going to do it on my palette paper. You can use a brush like that, a flat brush. You can use it like that to get a really wide stroke. Or you can stay on the chisel edge, which the handle is straight up and down, and you can get a really thin line. So a really thin line is using just your chisel edge. So load that dark thicket and just your chisel edge, and we're going to create a line in the center of each of our clovers, our clover leaves. And some will be bolder than the others, some will be over the light green, so you'll be able to see them really well. Some will be a little bit softer. That is perfect. But you just want to divide each little leaf just using that chisel edge. Let me hold that up so you guys can see it. Just a fun little detail. Each one is different. Okay, same brush. Getting excess paint off on a paper towel. And now I'm going to dip into that white. And I'm going to create not a perfect pattern, because remember, everything is loose and fun, but using my chisel edge again, I'm going to create those little details that you see in a clover. So kind of like a half circle. You're dividing it in half, but not with a straight line, with a rainbow or a half circle. I'm just going to remove some of that paint and just create those small little details that you would see in a clover. Dipping in the wicker white, but not too much, because you want that really soft dry brush look. You don't want a big bold check with white. I'll hold this up. Because we didn't use water and because we didn't clean our brush, we had green on it, then we went into the white. You get a softer detail than if you just used wicker white right out of the bottle. And I'm going to do that to all of my little clovers. Make each one different though. Don't create a pattern. And it's arched like a little rainbow. Like that little leaf is so tiny, I'm just going to put one little dab on there just to kind of represent. Okay, so we're going to let our clovers dry for a minute and we're going to add some fun color to our vase. I'm going to get that larger flat brush. I'm going to use a number 12, but you can use a 10, a 12. You could even use your 3/4 inch brush if you wanted to. I'm going to use that bright pink, get a little bit on my palette. If you don't have wicker white, get a little bit of that. And same thing with the navy. We wanted to cover it with green, but we wanted to keep that value of that navy coming through. Same with the red. So you don't want to completely cover up the red. You want to do just loose, random brush strokes and start building color. But see how beautiful the pink is on top of the red? It would be a totally different look if you were doing pink on a white canvas. So having a color underneath is a great way to experiment with color and add a color that you might not necessarily want in your painting, but you want it to accent a color that you're using. Every now and then I go in the wicker white, not cleaning off my brush, but just allowing that to kind of naturally blend and create some values in that pink. I'm keeping that red edge though. And just play with it until you get the value that you want. But don't base coat it where it's a solid pink base, because that's what gives you that really beautiful texture. I love that. I knew I wanted a pink base, but the red complements it so well. I'm going to add a little bit of pink on this edge. If you have too much paint on your brush, just wipe that on a paper towel. Oh, there we go. I like that better. Maybe a little bit of white on the bottom. Okay, I think that's it. All right, now your clover should be dry because we barely put any detail with those little white, highlights in each leaf. So I'm using that same small flat brush. I'm using a 6. Remember, you can use a 2 if you're more comfortable, or a 4. And what we're going to do now is connect all of the centers of our clovers. So I'm going to start with my 2 4-leaf clovers, and I'm going to go in that classic green. Same rule as the details on our clover. You can get a large stroke like that, or staying straight up and down, chisel edge only, you can get a really thin line. That's why a flat brush is my favorite, because there's so many different things you can do with it. So classic green, chisel edge only, not too much paint. You're just going to, let's see how I can do this where my hand's not covering it. You're going to come off of the leaf towards the center. Off of the leaf towards the center. You know what, let me switch into the dark green so you guys can see it better. Off of the leaf and into the center. And then you're just meeting in the middle. If you need to extend your leaf, make it a little longer. Just view it as the bottom, the pointy part of a heart. But you're just connecting those clovers. This one, you come off the leaf into the center with each one, and then they meet in the middle. This little guy, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to connect these two first. So still viewing it as a little center. It's like a three-legged table. So I'm connecting them all three without that fourth leaf. But see how natural it looks when you do the big elements first and then you go in and connect them? If we did it the other way, they would not be as organic and loose. Okay, so I've connected this one. This one's a little bit different, only because my leaves are far apart, which I do love. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to create the stems. So I'm going to bring the clovers into the vase. Now make sure you don't do straight lines into the vase, because that just doesn't look like how it would be if you went and picked these clovers. You want some curves. You want one falling maybe left or right. So start with the closest one. So this little guy, I'm going to curve and arch his stem instead of going straight down like a little stick. Chisel edge only. I'm going to curve and go a little bit to the right. Load some more paint. So this guy's way over here, so I'm going to curve him way over, and I'm actually going to overlap near him. I'm going to overlap that one. This guy's kind of directly out of the top, but I'm still not going to do a straight line. And this one, I'm not going to come behind the leaf. I'm going to curve him in and then go behind this one. And whatever angle you do is right. The only thing you don't want to do is perfectly straight lines. Okay, so this was the one. The leaves were far apart, so I haven't connected him yet. So now that I've got my stem, I'm going to connect each leaf to the stem. All right, see how that just looks so natural? Show everybody. All right, so now I've got my placement. I'm confident with the composition and how they're in the vase. I'm going to go and just thicken up those stems a little bit. I'm going to go back and forth in the classic green and the thicket. And just thicken them up. Not too much, because I like how delicate they are. But I want a little bit of shading and a little bit of highlighting. And that you can get from just loading all of the greens on your palette. I'm going to get a little bit of the lime green. I think the classic green is the one I like the best. But no water, just going back and forth in all the greens. All right, I think I like it. I've got all the details in my clovers. If you want to, which I might brighten mine up a little bit, same little flat brush, wiped off extra paint on the paper towel. All the little white details are dry, so I'm going to go into that lightest green. It's lime green. And I'm just going to dry brush a little bit of that lime green on some of the darker areas of my clovers, just to brighten it up a little bit, because I love the bright pink on the vase. I love the checkerboard pattern on the tablecloth. So I'm just going to get a little bit, not in every one, but just a few little areas to brighten that up a little bit. If any of your stems went over your vase, you can clean that brush in water and just, it's really easy. I'll pick up some red and just create that line back, going right over the green. And then I'll go right back into that pink. You don't want to blend it too much because you'll lose all the texture that you have. But the same techniques that we did, a little bit of pink, a little bit of red, and then it creates that strong line again. All right, I think that is our cute little clovers in a fun little vase on a fun little tablecloth. That's really fun for St. Patrick's Day. All right, so guys, if you guys want to add the little word lucky, it's fun in honor of St. Patrick's Day, and it's a cute little word. We are going to use our smallest brush, which is a number 1 liner brush. I've still got some navy on my palette. If you don't, add just the tiniest amount. And this is the only time, you guys, that we'll use water. Just dip in the water and mix that into the edge of your navy blue paint.
We've got a lot of ladies in the chat saying thank you for your cute painting.
Oh, I hope they enjoyed it. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. Almost, not yet. Okay, so you've got a little bit of water just to make the paint a little bit thinner. And then roll your little brush in the paint. Roll it in and then out. What that does is it just gives the tip of your brush such a clean edge, and it allows you to get that detail. So over here, the font can be whatever you want it to be. You can do script or you can do bold. I'm going to do really long, skinny uppercase letters. And just like with our stems, I'm going to just kind of sketch it on there first. I hope somebody thought that was my name. Lucky, it's not. See, that's kind of boring, but that gives me confidence. Oh, I like the placement, I like the size. And now I'm going to go in and just go over it, just like we did with our stems. Make it a little bit thicker. I love the navy word, and then it kind of connects the background of the clovers. It gives a lot of dimension to your painting. There we go. And then on the ends, I'm just going to flare that out with, it's like a little baby Y on the top of each letter. Kind of a fun, I don't know, maybe a little bit of retro look. An upside down baby Y on the bottom. Let me hold that up so you guys can see it. It's such a little detail. Oh, that's a tiny detail. See, just a little baby Y on the top of each letter, just to kind of give it some personality. Oh, on the bottom of that. And even on the top and bottom of the C. Okay. I think that's it. Does anyone have any questions?
No, I think everybody's really excited.
I hope you guys had a fun time. Okay, so we always use the canvases without the staples. Just a little tip for anyone that doesn't want to frame it. I always say, do to the side what you've done to the top. So when we're done with this class, you could go back tonight or tomorrow and wrap the yellow around, even add a little bit of checks to the sides where the tablecloth is. Then you don't have to frame it. It gives it a really finished look. All right, you guys, so everybody, love that you joined us tonight. Happy St. Patrick's Day. We are here on Let's Paint Live the first Thursday of every month, same time. We have different artists. We have so many fun classes. Next month is Emma, and it's spring, and it's Easter. And I think she named it
Darling Duckling.
Darling Duckling. I think she was calling it something even cuter in the studio. But look what you guys get to paint with Emma next month. This is perfect for Easter and perfect for spring, and honestly just perfect for everything because look how cute he is. with his big bow. I wish I could remember what she was calling him. It was the cutest name. But anyway, you guys, thanks for joining us. Share your photos. We'd love to see what you guys have painted tonight. Join Emma next month, the first Thursday of the month, to paint this cute little duckling for spring. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.